Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Governor Abbott absolutely turns the tables on CNN hack Jake Tapper when he tries to shame him on live TV. And before we get in, I want to give a quick shout out to our amazing sponsor, Colonial Metals Group. These folks quite literally have the cure to Bidenflation, but more on that later. Now, let's get back into the video.
You also say the border crisis is happening because Biden hasn't defended the United States against, quote, invasion. The Dallas Morning News editorial board, which we should note, endorsed you for governor in 2018 and endorsed you last fall as well. The Dallas Morning News editorial board said that accusation, quote, repeats ugly rhetoric characterizing the border crisis in military terms that risk portraying all migrants as enemy combatants, unquote. I wanted to give you an opportunity to respond to that criticism.
Sure. Actually, what it does is to repeat verbiage, word by word, of what's contained in the United States Constitution. Under Article 1, Section 10, it authorizes the governor of a state to declare an invasion for purposes of us as a state to be able to respond to what's going on our border. It's clear from the fact that I have now provided 8 letters to the President of the United States asking for assistance for the state of Texas. And to each of those 8 letters, he has refused to provide any assistance whatsoever. I've talked to Secretary Mayorkas about providing assistance to the state of Texas, all on deaf ears. Texas has been left alone as some frontier outpost for us to have to grapple with ourselves the record-breaking volume of millions of people coming across the border a year. Jake, if this is not an invasion, what is? Think about the volume of people coming across the border and look at what was happening on the ground in El Paso alone before the president showed up. It was all cleaned up, of course, right before he arrived, but they had completely overtaken all the streets of downtown, not all, many of the streets of downtown El Paso in ways where control had been ceded to those who had come from another country.
Yeah, I guess I don't speak for the Dallas Morning News editorial board, but I guess their point was is that there's a huge crisis going on at the border. It's a huge humanitarian crisis as well. Again, I don't need to tell you this. And using the term invasion, even if it is constitutional in terms of its origin, makes it sound like these people are all coming to harm the American people when maybe some of them are, but certainly most of them are not.
Right. And listen, and that's a misunderstanding of what I was saying. Two quick points, and one is, what I was doing was invoking a constitutional clause. The other is we were talking about those who were perpetuating the invasion, and that's the drug cartels. The drug cartels are invading the United States of America, and if Americans don't know that, they need to wake up. If nothing else, they need to wake up to the reality that just Texas law enforcement alone has seized enough fentanyl that it would be enough to kill every man, woman, and child in the entire United States of America. That could destroy us as a country. And it's Texas, not the United States, that's stepping up and trying to do something about it.
And that is an absolutely sad state of affairs. That the state of Texas has to take things into its own hands because our federal government is refusing to take any responsibility at our border. That what has happened under the Biden administration has been catastrophic. And the effects have been, let me put it to you this way. The very people who vote for this, the people who vote for Democrats, are the ones hurt the most by these policies. Because these migrants come into the United States unvetted. We don't know where they're coming from. We don't know why they're here. We don't know what they want. They come into the United States, take these weird jobs that no one else seems to do. I'll explain more on that later. And then they often wind up in cities. And what do the Democrats-run cities do? Well, instead of saying, hey, ICE, we're holding these people, come and do your job. No, they put them up in motels and hotels and then take more resources that are already allocated for the tax-paying citizens that were already hurting under bad Democrat leadership. It is absolutely asinine, and it's ultimately suicide. And see, this is why I say the Democrat Party is the party of rich white liberals, and only rich white liberals. Hey y'all, in case you haven't noticed, this isn't stretching like it used to. As a matter of fact, it's turning more into this. Folks, we are in an inflationary crisis, And that's why this show is sponsored by Colonial Metals Group. The experts, led by CEO Paul Stone, fully understand the minute details of investing in gold, silver, and other precious metals. They are here to protect your wealth against the insanity that has been Bidenomics and our refusal to stop printing money. And they even have a deal for first-time buyers. Free gold and silver IRA-backed accounts, insured storage for 5 years, up to $7,500 in free silver, and a personal safe to keep all this good stuff. So take a look at their website, link in the description below, or give them a call at this number to see what Colonial Metals Group can do to protect your wealth today. Because they're the ones that are isolated from these problems. Rich white liberals live in their little clusters around the city where there's very little crime because the police quite literally have to keep a barrier. You literally live in a gated community. And I love using Atlanta as an example. You either live in Sandy Springs, you either live in a high-rise in downtown, or there's that sliver along the Chattahoochee River. And if you notice that that's not where the crimes take place. They take place on the other side of the perimeter. You could quite literally take a knife, slice Atlanta in half diagonal, and you'll know where your rich white liberals live and your poor Democrats. And the poor Democrats are the ones that are hurting the most. And they're starting to wonder, why do we keep voting for these people? Well, let's examine that. They keep on voting for Biden and Mayorkas because the media, CNN, Jake Tapper, will remind them on a constant basis that Republicans are mean, evil racists that don't like you. When the Republican message has been, hey, we think that you deserve more freedom, here's a tax break. Let's see if you can start a business. That worked. It worked under Trump, and his policies on the border were insanely better. We at least need a barrier along the entirety of our border. We at least need to up our game in taking on the fentanyl crisis. And what does Alejandro Mayorkas do? He goes around and he takes people from important details, and then he says, we're going to stop making you do casework. We're going to need you to drive these illegal immigrants to a facility. And that facility doesn't actually hold the illegal migrant. What he has done in his time has been borderline treason. I don't like throwing that word around, but it's close to that because he's betraying the hopes and dreams of millions of Americans, and then he's selling a fake version of America to the migrants. And I feel bad for these migrants. A lot of them are coming over and they're quite literally being chattel for the cartels. The cartel says, you pay me X amount of money, we'll get you across to the United States, but you gotta pay us later. And that means interest. That means more human suffering. That means, think of what a loan shark does. That's what the cartels now do. It is a horrific thing. And then we have businesses, unorthodox, vile businesses, who will hire children to clean out meat plants and industrial areas. There is so much unethical things going on that the Biden administration could be cracking down on. I remember a time when Democrats were at least honest in the fact that they wanted to regulate better our industries. Maybe they had a point. Maybe what RFK is saying about our food and our pharmaceutical companies is right. There's a good chance that the old 2000s Democrats had a huge point to make, but you know what? They aren't to be found anymore. And Greg Abbott is out there trying to defend the Rio Grande with his hands tied behind his back, because ultimately federal power is more important than a state trying to control a border. That's what this is. A weird power grab and a weird fight between a federal government who does not want to do anything about the border and a state who is seeing firsthand the horrors of what happens. This should be basic logic, but it's not. And Greg Abbott is doing his best in trying to fight, but he can't win constitutionally. Constitutionally, the federal government is supposed to be on that border. and they're asleep at the wheel. And rich white liberals, for some reason, think that this is a good thing because it's one of the only ways that they can show their patriotism. It is just a bizarre, asinine situation. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed this segment here on Political Brawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. And until then, y'all have a good one.